Andre.
Hi.
I'm going to tell you some information about things that happen to your brain, okay?
Okay.
Alright, so to start, the brain is this complex storage site, okay? And that's where you can store all of your memories, feelings, and all your other thoughts. If you want to remember something, you can just pull it out of your storage site. Now, I wanted to talk to you about a sickness that happens to your brain. And so, this sickness happens when you keep hitting your head really hard against things many, many times. When this happens, a person who used to be really happy and remember a lot of things now becomes very sad and angry and forgetful, and they don't really know why this happens to them. Hi, Andre.
Hello.
There have been studies by scientists who have found out that repeated blows to the head can actually lead to a disease called CTE. So let me demonstrate. So the clear jar represents the human skull, and the ping pong balls taped together represent the brain, and the water inside will represent the liquid called CSF, which protects and surrounds the brain from any outside damage. But there is some leeway to the movement of the brain. In a game such as football, where there's violent contact to the head, such as headbutts, when the player, which will represent my fist, comes into contact with a person's skull, it comes into a strong force. We see that the skull and the brain hit each other on full force. And this is called concussion, which is also known as a mild brain injury. With repeated concussions, the brain will get progressively worse and damaged even more. So I'm going to talk to you about this new area of neurodegenerative diseases in neuroscience called CTE. CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and encephalopathy refers to a general disease, disorder, or malfunction of the brain. And so CTE is a progressive neurodegenerative disease in high-contact sports such as football, hockey, or boxing, even in the military. The cause of this disease is repeated, blunt, and forced trauma to the head, such as concussions. And with enough violent hits to the head, this could lead to permanent damage of the brain. Some of its symptoms include subtle but diminishing levels of memory and judgment, personality changes, depression, and even thoughts of suicide. These symptoms tend to occur very early in age, where on average, a 40-year-old CTE patient would have the brain of a 65-year-old Alzheimer's patient. CTE can only be confirmed and diagnosed right after death. In recent years, there have been researchers who've tried to find out what the criteria for CTE is. And so they've found out that CTE is a form of tauopathy. There are these small proteins in the brain called tau that get phosphorylated, which means a phosphate group gets attached to it in order to stabilize certain filaments in the brain called microtubules. When tau is hyperphosphorylated, meaning tau is getting bombarded with all of these phosphate groups that saturate it, it ends up destabilizing these microfilaments and undergoes a downward spiral of events. This is a drawing of a brain cell, also called a neuron. These events eventually lead to the accumulation of abnormal tau, which aggregates and clumps together to form neurofibrillary tangles, which are located here in red. Neurofibrillary tangles are very toxic to our brains and are found inside the neurons of CTE patients. They choke the neurons, which lead to neuronal death. They first appear in the depths of the sulci of the brain, which are the valleys of the foldings of the brain. And as the disease progresses, the tangle spreads to all the other areas of the brain until it is entirely consumed, and greatly affects how the person thinks, feels, and acts.